Now, that song of yours, you told me about it, and you often say it on stage as well, the story of I'll Be True to You. You told me that story as well,
Right.
about how you came to write that. Would you mind telling me that again?
Well, a friend of mine wrote that song, and he was or is still a songwriter in Nashville, and he was writing songs in his little cubicle to try and get a publisher to get popular artists to play his songs. And apparently the band called the Oak Ridge Boys got their hands on the song, and they took it and changed it around and sang it from the woman's point of view. Alan Rohde is the guy that wrote it, and they were quite popular in the South, kind of a gospel harmony group in the 70s. The Oak Ridge Boys, you know, big long beards, kind of ZZ Top style guys. And my second wife just loved it, and she knew some of the guys in the band, and she just loved that song. And then in the 80s, when I was working in the Gulf Coast, Alan Rohde, the guy that wrote the song, showed up at this one little bar where my wife worked before we got married, and where I was working. It's one of the first places I ever worked down in Alabama. And he would sing that song just as a folk artist, and she would just fall to pieces every time he sang it. And then she dumped me. She threw me out on Christmas Eve, and so I was thinking, well, I was thinking a lot about her at the time, so I got the guitar and I started working up a version of the song with the slide guitar, with old Bessie. But I took it and I changed it. I changed it back to the man singing it, which is the way that he originally wrote it, but he never sang it that way. But he wrote it that way. He told me later, after I had started recording it and playing it around, he got contacted by a lot of different people that were interested in the song, and I met up with him one night, and he told me that he had originally written it from the man's point of view, and that the Oak Ridge Boys had changed it. So that's kind of how that song came around for me.
Well, you told me she threw you out on Christmas Eve, and then you had nowhere to go except your car.
I was down in Gulf Shores, Alabama. I drove about 50 miles to Destin, Florida, along the Gulf Coast. Pulled over in a little lay-by, laid up, climbed in the back seat of my old caddy, led Bessie out. We started fooling around. It was a folks. All the liquor stores were closed. Yes, it was a long blue Christmas Eve. And that's when this song came to me. So in love and also young, but she was going far away. He cried, I'll be true to you, even though you don't want me to. I'll be blue for you, even though you've asked me not to. she had many men, but his fate would have it they met again. He was on a downhill slide, she was just sliding in. When she looked into his eyes that night, she never realized that the only real love in her life was passing by. As she turned and left him there, her final words goodbye, she heard him calling out to her as she walked him by. He cried, I've been too rude to you. Seemed like speaking to me is the least that you could do. Hotel, he died there in the dawn, kneeling beside his grave, oh so late and oh so wrong. She longed to hold him close again, crying on and on. She cried, I'll be true to you. After all exactly 6 hours to get over my second wife. I got up the next morning, I got the shovel out, and I buried her right there. Oh yeah, you gotta move on. We're gonna take a pause, we'll be right back. Check out the Blues Boutique up here. I'll be true to you, even though you don't want me to. I'll be blue for you, even though you've asked me not to. Well, because it was her favorite song, yeah, I thought, well, I'll learn it and maybe I'll play it for her, which I never had the chance to play it for her, believe it or not. Which is probably a good thing.